Let's say that you wanted to start budgeting because at the end of each month, you're left with no money in your checking account. You try really hard to save money, but for some reason, it seems like it's almost impossible to do that. How exactly can you break this cycle? Well, this is the ultimate guide to budgeting your money. It's the video that I personally wish that I had years ago when I first started managing my money. And to make this as easy to follow as possible, I'm gonna break this video down into 6 steps. And so the first point is actually forgetting about the technical side of budgeting altogether, and it's about asking yourself this very important question: what happens to your money if you don't budget? If you don't budget, your money disappears, right? It vanishes into thin air like steam from a boiling pot, unless of course you're one of those hardcore frugal people that refuses to spend money. But even then, you still have bills, you still have groceries. There are things in life that just simply cost money that you can't really avoid unless you just go live off of the land. And if you're a human, then you have wants and desires, right? I mean, come on, like there's things in life that you just want. Like you don't need a new pair of sneakers or you don't need a new Apple Watch in order to survive, but you want that thing. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but how can you take all of that spending and put it together in an organized, cohesive budget that allows you to buy things that you want and just enjoy life while still also making progress towards your future? And that actually brings us to the next point, number 2, which is how do you stick with budgeting? Like how do you actually stay consistent? We as humans are driven by emotion, right? Even if you think you're a logical person, you probably are. I'm a pretty logical person, but a lot of your decisions are still based off of emotions. And so the real trick with budgeting, and you're not going to hear this in any other budgeting video, but the real trick is to actually tap into those emotions, and we're going to use those emotions in a productive way to help us budget. So let's take a look at 2 different scenarios. So in the first scenario, you start budgeting because you randomly thought to yourself one day, I need to start budgeting. And so you start budgeting. In the second scenario, your goal is to start budgeting so that you can pay all your bills on time and still have money left over to start saving toward a down payment on a home for your family. One with a backyard, a dog, and plenty of space for your kids to run around. Looking at these 2 scenarios, which one do you think is gonna yield better results, right? As in the person in the scenario, me with a stick body, would find it easier to stick with budgeting long term. If you said the second scenario, then you're right. In the first scenario, you would go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, you would download a budgeting app, hoping that it was somehow gonna magically help you to stay consistent with budgeting. But after a few days or a few weeks, to no surprise, you would stop budgeting. But in the second scenario, the one where you imagined a better future for yourself and your family, you had goals, you had ambitions, you had a reason as to why you wanted to start budgeting in the first place. There's things that you have imagined before that you think would be great, like having a house or a new car or going on that vacation or retiring with a few $100,000 or a few $1 million in your bank account. So think about your goal. Write it down in your phone, on your computer, on a piece of paper, whatever you prefer, and use that as your motivation to get you toward where you want to go. And this brings us to step number 3, which is to know your income. If you have no idea how much money you're actually bringing in each month, then it's going to be impossible to know how much money you can afford to spend. So the first thing you should do is go to your bank account, right? Open up your bank statements and see how much money you are receiving every single month so that you can use that as the foundation for your budget. And so as you can see on the screen here, I have this hypothetical budget, right? Now you can either copy this budget exactly, like copy the template. I'll include a free download in the description below to a PDF and a Word document so that you can use this template. Or you can also just use a budgeting app, right? Free apps like Mint or Good Budget are good options. Whatever is gonna work best for you. But what I'm about to do here is very important, so it's critical that you pay attention here, okay? So let's say that you work a job, right? A W-2 job, or perhaps you're self-employed, you run a business, or you're a freelancer. Whatever the case is, let's just say for simplicity that you make $3,000 per month. That's $36,000 per year. However, one mistake that I see a lot of people making is not factoring in taxes. But understand that you have to factor that in when you're budgeting, because you don't want to say that you're making more money when actually you're making less money because of taxes. But you also have to factor in other things like dental insurance, health insurance, right? Is your company automatically deducting those benefits from your paycheck? So what you need to put here in the income box on your budget is exactly how much money you're bringing in every month after taxes and after all of the expenses. Also, if you have a side hustle, right? If you have a side business or something that you're doing outside of your primary income source to make extra money, then you want to include that in this box as well. Moving on to step number 4, which is to know your expenses. And by far, the easiest way to figure out what your expenses are is to go to your bank statements, your credit card statements, whatever, and figure out what your common month after month expenses are. So for example, rent or a mortgage, right? Let's just say it's $1,000. Could be more, could be a lot more, or it could be less, right? This is just an example. You put here what's accurate for you. And then you'll have to pay for things like utilities, water, electricity, right? This could all be one single bill for you depending on where you live. It could be separate bills, but let's just say that that's $150 per month. If you have a car payment, right, that's a recurring expense that you have to put down on your budget, and maybe it's $300 per month. And because you have a car, you also have things like insurance, and maybe that's $150 per month. And unless you have an electric car, then you need to put gas into your car, right? And that's not cheap. So maybe you're paying $100 per month for gas. Perhaps you don't have a car. You might use public transportation, or you Uber to work every day, or you pay $100 per month to carpool with somebody else, right? Whatever the case is for you, whatever your situation looks like, that's what you're gonna put down here as a recurring expense. Your phone bill, how much are you paying for your phone bill, right? Let's just say $50 per month. Groceries, if it's just you, then you're probably only spending a few $100s each month. If you have a family with a kid or multiple kids, then that number is gonna go up really quickly. So let's just meet somewhere in the middle, and we'll say that you're spending $400 per month on groceries. Dining out, if you don't dine out a lot, good for you. You're probably saving hundreds of dollars in this category, but let's just put $100 here just to keep things simple. Entertainment, if you're going to the movies, having drinks with friends, let's just call it $200 per month. If you're anything like me, then you just stay inside all day and make YouTube videos, so this won't really be a problem. Subscriptions and memberships, things like Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, Apple Music, a gym membership. Those are recurring expenses and they should be tracked in your budget, okay? So let's just say, I don't know, $20 per month. Okay, so as you can see, I could go on and on, right? The point here though is to track every single thing that you spend money on every single month. Then, once you've got all of your expenses listed out in this box here, add it up. And so all of the example expenses that we've listed out here comes out to $2,520, okay? $2,520. Maybe depending on where you live, you spend way more than that. That's fine. For simplicity, let's just round this number up to an even $2,600. And you know what? Maybe there's a common expense that all of us have that I just forgot about. I forgot to add it. So let's just call it $2,700. And guess what? If you're bringing in $3,000 per month and you're spending $2,700 per month, then you are in the positive each month. This means that you now have $300 to do something else with, okay? And we'll discuss exactly what that something else is in a little bit. But let's just say, for example, that you're actually spending more than $2,700, right? Perhaps you're spending $3,000, which is what you're bringing in each month. Or maybe even worse, you're spending $3,500. That's not a good thing, because that means that you're now getting into debt each month because you're spending more money than what you're earning. Now, unfortunately, if you're spending more money than what you're bringing in each month, there is no formula, no magic formula that can fix this. A huge part of financial success and just really getting ahead in life in general is making sacrifices. And so, what expenses can you cut out right here in order to get ahead, right? Can you sacrifice spending $200 per month having drinks with friends, or spending $100 per month eating out? Is it at all possible to get rid of your car and just use public transportation for now until you're in a better position financially, right? These are all extremely difficult and hard sacrifices that you have to make if you actually want to get ahead. Now, the other option, if you don't want to cut your expenses, is to increase your income, right? Increase the amount of money that you're bringing in each month. You can do this by searching for a higher paying job. You can do this by taking on a second job or starting a side hustle. Of these two things, right? Cutting your expenses or increasing your income, which do I recommend? What I actually recommend out of the two is both. I think that you should constantly be trying to increase your income, and you should always be making an effort to decrease your expenses. Or if your income is increasing, great job, but that doesn't mean that you should go and increase your expenses as well, right? You should always be trying to live below your means so that you have money left over at the end of each month to invest, to save toward a down payment on a home, or to start investing in rental properties, or doing whatever you can to set yourself up for the future. It's why guys like Warren Buffett have lived in the same home since before he was one of the wealthiest people in the world. And moving on to step number 5, which is to use the 50-30-20 rule. The 50-30-20 rule is a very simple budgeting strategy that you can use to help you allocate your spending. The way it works is like this: 50% of your income goes toward your needs, housing, groceries, utilities, etc. 30% goes to your wants, dining out, hobbies, Netflix, and then the final 20% goes to saving, investing, and paying off high interest debts. Now, if we go back to our example budget, you'll see that this rule is already being broken. I mean, almost all of these expenses are technically needs, and that's not good because your needs need to remain at or below 50% of your budget. If you're constantly going over that 50% mark, then you're gonna have to be okay with cutting out non-necessity expenses, right? Things like dining out, going to the movies, fast food, entertainment, drinks with friends. You're gonna have to cut that stuff out in order to supplement that part of your budget to pay for your needs. Even after all of that, okay, if you still can't even keep your needs below an 80% of your budget, then it's time to start setting a cap on your expenses. Your electricity bill, right? That's something that most of us have control over. If you're constantly leaving lights on, if you're sleeping with the TV turned on, if you're still using old, non-energy efficient light bulbs, these are all things that you have complete control over that will help to reduce your energy bill each month. If you pay for water, again, you can control it to a certain point. Cut back on your shower times. Instead of using the dishwasher, maybe just hand wash your dishes so that you can use a lot less water. But the one thing that you cannot do is start dipping into the 20% of your income that's supposed to be allocated for saving, investing, and paying off high interest debt. The reason that you can't get ahead in life, the reason that you feel like you're running on this hamster wheel, just going around and around, every single day feels the same and you can't make any progress, is because you're not preserving any of your money for saving and investing. And we've got to change that. And that actually brings us to the most important point of this video, which is how to use your leftover money each month. So let's head back to the drawing board here and imagine for a second that you have 2 jars. The first jar is called your emergency fund. 5% of your income goes into this jar. The point of an emergency fund is to provide you with a cushion between your emergency, in which you have to spend money on for that, and then your assets, right? Things like your savings accounts, your investment accounts, your mortgage. And ideally, you want to have 3 months worth of living expenses inside of this fund. It's probably going to be a pretty big number, but that's the reason why you start now and you start slow, so that you can slowly work your way up to that number. Okay, so that's one jar. What about the next jar, right? This is your investing jar, and 15% of your income needs to go into this jar. Now, when I say jar, I obviously don't mean like a physical pickle jar or something at your house, right? What I'm referring to is actually a brokerage account where you can then go and invest in stocks and ETFs, and preferably this investment account would be some type of tax advantage account like a Roth IRA or a 401k. Now, if you have high interest debt, right, like credit cards with 16 to 24% interest, high interest personal loans, things like that, then you're absolutely going to want to focus first on paying off these debts. It wouldn't make sense to keep the credit card debt and pay 16% interest on that and then go and invest your money and make 8% in the stock market, right? The numbers don't add up there. You would be losing money over time. Also, when you get to the point where you finally save up 3 months of your living expenses inside of your emergency fund, then you can take that 5% and you can start investing that as well, right? And so instead of investing 15% of your money, you would be investing 20% of your money, okay? So that's all I've got for you guys in this video. Hey, listen, I appreciate you staying around and watching until the end. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. You're awesome. And as always, I will see you again very soon. Take care.